This is Sarnia Lambton Daily for Thursday, April 23rd. Good evening, I'm Terry Doyle. Lambton Public Health received a significant batch of COVID-19 test results over the past 24 hours. This has brought with it an increase in positive cases in the area, but the percentage of people who have tested negative is holding steady. Overall, 159 people have now tested positive for the virus in the region, up 9 from Wednesday's update. The number of people who are considered recovered has gone up by 4 to 66. 152 test results came in since the last update from Lambton Public Health. 88% of people who have been tested since the pandemic began have come back negative. Previously, Lambton Public Health had contacted those people directly, but that process is likely to change.
We had kept a practice of notifying individuals personally about their negative results in coordination with other care providers. So that was one thing that we had been doing. Many larger health units had already moved away from that because the burden of reporting the negative cases was too great based on the resources that they had. And there at that time were no other mechanisms by which someone could receive their results, right? So what has happened in the meantime is if you look at the number of tests that we've done, we've now had 999, so just shy of 1,000 negative results to have to report back to specific individuals. And meanwhile, the government has created things like the portal where individuals can log on to get their own test results. So what we're going to try to do is shift over time to people checking their own results through that system. Where they cannot do so, for example, if they don't have access to the internet, we can try to work with them to do it, but we may not be able to get those results as quickly as the tests ramp up because they're going to prioritize sending us positives, and we have to deal with those positives right away. And the reporting might lag in the system on negatives, which would mean that it might take more time to get negative results to people. So while we would be making our way through that change, we might need to move to this sort of no news is good news approach.
Let's go down to Sarnia Police Headquarters right now and check in with Chief Norm Hansen. And Norm, here we are into, I think, week 6 of this. We continue on. In general terms, right away, how are things going with the Sarnia Police Force?
We're plugging along pretty well, actually. I'm very impressed with our officers and our civilian staff. We're fully staffed right now. We've made some adjustments to schedules to try and keep people socially distanced from each other. You'll notice that with this possible exception of brand new recruits, we're only operating one-person cars just to try and keep our members safe.
And I guess that's the thing. And certainly, talk about essential services right there, healthcare workers, law enforcement, first responders, and everything like that. But your crew has been out there, and I'm sure it's, it's still busy times just to maintain the standards that are out there, no matter pandemic or no pandemic.
Absolutely. Nothing changes as far as crime or the enforcement of the law. We're doing things a little bit differently, trying to keep our officers and the public safe. But then we also have all the new laws to enforce and to worry about as well.
And you mentioned the new ones. Maybe for people who aren't familiar, obviously the ones that have come down from the provincial government, for example, and we hear police and bylaw enforcement, and maybe sort of give us that idea of where sort of the separation or how does sort of everyone's role come in there?
Well, actually, under the Emergency Measures Act, the bylaw officers were enacted to carry out full duties for laying charges or investigations, the same as a police officer or a special constable. We've been very fortunate here in Sarnia that the city bylaw department has stepped up and really assisted us, and that allows us not to be stretched too thin. You've probably read the numbers. I think we're well over 700 or maybe 800 calls now regarding COVID alone, and so that adds a big burden to our normal call load. And because bylaws is taking a lot of those calls, the bulk of them actually, it's been very nice for us.
And I guess through all of this, one of the big things I'm sure has been education to go along with enforcement.
It has been. Nobody really likes extra rules. I mean, I don't in my private life, but these are things that between the medical people and the government and ourselves, we've decided are necessary right now to try and keep people healthy and safe. And so the first wave of response to calls was all education, warnings, and by and large, people sometimes just didn't realize they were doing something wrong, or they didn't really think ahead of time. And as soon as it was brought to their attention, they helped out by breaking up, by going home, by not going on the playground equipment. Every once in a while, someone gets charged, and nobody likes to be charged either. But we're left with the law the way it is, and it's not for fun. It's for saving people's lives.
Has it been a bit of a challenge from your end where these laws come down, and because, coming down in sort of I'll say short notice, and that's just because we're in the middle of something here where obviously other laws they have time to roll out? And has that been a challenge that obviously you and your team has overcome, but has that indeed been a bit of a challenge because new rules coming in on fairly short notice?
It's always a challenge when the laws change or when new laws are enacted, because we always have to decide how the wordings are on the charges and which court level will prosecute this. What bylaw and ourselves have been doing basically is contacting the provincial prosecutor and asking his advice about how to go about these charges. And so it's a challenge for sure, but we're pretty well caught up with it now.
On the other side, I know sometimes people just like to see police, I'm sure even youngsters, when they see a cruiser drive by or see an officer out there, kids love to see police officers out there. I've got to think you do get that sense as well as the community kind of working together right now.
I do, and it's heartwarming actually, because the vast majority of the comments and compliments we get on our websites, on social media, the vast majority are positive, and people are really supporting us. And that's nice for our officers and civilian staff here to hear that their work is appreciated.
Chief Hansen, what's your day-to-day routine like differently during this pandemic compared to normal times? I've got to think you've probably had your fill of teleconferences and Zoom meetings, probably more, I'm going to guess, in the 6 weeks than probably many years.
Well, we refer to it as Groundhog Day. It's very, very taxing on everybody. It's not just myself. I believe I had Good Friday off this year so far. Well, since the start of this, since March 1st, I guess. I had Good Friday off. That's the only day that we haven't met or haven't had meetings and decisions to make. And that's 7 days a week. But when people ask us that, I always go back to thinking, well, you know what? There are a lot of people that are out of work. So I don't complain.
What sort of things are there? Officers, a lot of times they go through stressful situations, reporting on or having to deal with certain crime and things like that. Normally in their days off, their time off, they have those breaks, recreation, those times. Do you kind of have to be on the lookout for the mental health of your team there, knowing they don't have sort of those breaks, whether it's time-wise, but or to kind of get that escape from their job because of, the recreation things are shut down? You sort of have to be on watch, and I've got to think there's resources available for them.
Yes, we have a pretty good peer support system here, and I know that the peer support team has been monitoring that and looking for outside resources for officers to access. By and large, we've caught up with it, or we're keeping up with it, I believe. But it's always out there. And like you said, policing can be a stressful occupation. When you add the worry of possibly getting ill or the worry of new charges and things like that, it adds to it for sure.
You recently welcomed a couple of new officers, I saw, but had to do the swearing in a little bit differently.
We did. That's the first time we did it that way. The mayor was on video link, and we swore them in that way. They've just come back from police college, and they just abbreviated that class because of COVID. They wanted to make sure no one got sick, so they closed the college down. So they came back a wee bit early, and the next intake, where we were supposed to have 2 more officers go, it has been at least postponed if not canceled.
So what challenges? There's that, obviously the police college, things like that. Are there any other challenges in terms of other supply lines or other sort of outside services being shut down? Are there certain challenges you run into over these past 6 weeks?
We've been fortunate in having a lot of collaboration between police services. I'm on a weekly meeting with the Zone 6, which is the Southwestern Ontario Chiefs of Police. And we've been able to beg, borrow, steal things that we need or supply other places with things they need, because everyone has different stocks of PPE and things like that. Also, the community has stepped up. We're very fortunate here in Sarnia. We recently got a donation of hand sanitizer from Refined Fuel, and we appreciate all those supports. Civeco has been very good because Sarnia is a unique community, and we're used to having emergencies or being prepared for that at least. There have been supplies of things in the private industry that have been made available to first responders. Before
we let you go, what message would you have for the public to try and just get through this and look for the light at the end of the tunnel down the road?
It's a broken record. I hear it with other people on the radio as well, but we're all in this together, right? And hopefully, I'm hoping that we are going to see a flattening of the curve, as they say, and that if we all maintain our social distancing and our rules and hand washing and all the various rules that have been put upon us, I don't think it'll last too long.
Well, Chief Norm Hansen, we appreciate the time. All the best to you and your staff, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks very much.
There's Chief Norm Hansen of Sarnia Police joining us. More to come. You're watching Sarnia Lambton Daily on your TV. Welcome back to Sarnia Lambton Daily. Well, we know many people are dealing with various challenges during this pandemic, and we know about the senior population and dealing with underlying conditions there, but it's not just people that are in that 60-plus range. Let's go to someone right now who is well below that age range, but definitely deals with some underlying conditions. Tara Lisabeth joins us now. Tara, also known many in the community as Tara Burke, who's gone through a pair of double lung transplants. Tara, right off the bat, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, you know, not going too crazy in quarantine yet, but things are going well. Lungs are happy.
So as you're someone who's gone through, as we know, 2 double lung transplants, I believe we're almost up to 2 years since the last one. How are things going?
So far we're doing really good. I mean, with the first transplant, before I ran into issues, they said everything was great and, you know, things were going well. And with this one, everything's been even better than the first time around. So I'm actually 21 months today officially. And, my lung function as of this morning is 106%, and the team's pretty happy with things, so we're just gonna roll with it.
Fingers crossed, knocking on wood here in our studio for you as well. And I know everyone's been pulling for you since this all started. But here's someone, obviously yourself, we talk about what, you know, COVID-19 coronavirus can do when it comes to breathing and lungs. And I've got to think, as you said, staying in quarantine, and are you pretty much really laying low right now?
Yeah, I've pretty much, you know, locked myself in my house along with my husband. He's been working from home. We're not going out to any public places. We're walking the dogs, but other than that, we're sticking home because that's the safest thing to do. You know, if I don't go out and don't come into contact with anyone, then we're not going to hopefully contract the virus right now.
In a case where I assume you've got some people helping you out if necessary, including your husband for groceries and those essential items?
Oh yeah, I've got, you know, my parents, his parents, our neighbors, a lot of friends have offered to help out. At this point, he's not even going to go to the grocery store. We're limiting all exposure just because my immune system's suppressed. So even if he went out somewhere and came home, he could, you know, bring this virus home because it is airborne, but it also stays live, kind of in someone's body if you've, you know, contracted it for up to 2 weeks, they're saying, and it can be on your clothes or your hands or whatever. So we're just being as cautious as we can to, you know, keep both of us healthy.
Obviously, through your travels and your experiences, you've networked with a lot of people who've been dealing with CF, and I'm sure through your network of people, it's got to be some nervous times right now, just because, as you said, when people that are already dealing with a challenged immune system or underlying conditions, we've got to think, you know, everyone's nervous right now, but that just ramps it up a little bit more, and I would assume everybody's trying to lean on each other for support.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, it's kind of a 50-50 mix in the community, I'm finding, of people that are completely nervous, anxious, worried all the time kind of attitude. And then there's another half of us that are kind of like, well, we kind of do this all the time. You know, we have worn masks out in public before it was the cool thing to do. You know, we know how to kind of keep ourselves healthy and safe during cold and flu season on an annual basis. And we're kind of just looking at it as, you know, keep doing what we do as almost second nature, and be, you know, a little more cautious right now, obviously, because that virus is live and spreading so quickly, and it's new and there's not a lot of information on it. And already having lungs that are compromised, we obviously don't want to put any more struggle on them. But so that kind of 50-50 mix makes it interesting. You know, we kind of balance each other out, which I think is the ideal situation. You know, people that are really nervous and anxious are able to kind of express how they're feeling. And I know there's been a few times where I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of that as being an issue. But again, it's been easier for myself because we've just completely decided, you know, we're not going anywhere, interacting with anyone, keeping our distance. You know, when people are dropping groceries and stuff, they're parked in the driveway, they drop them off on the porch, you know, we kind of stick our head out, say hi. And but yeah, it's interesting. It is, I kind of have had a few friends message and be like, is this what it's like for you? Like, especially right after a transplant when you were supposed to, like, avoid public places and wash your hands all the time. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much. Like, so I think it's kind of a taste of, my normal life, I guess, for the public and friends and family to kind of see, how much thought really goes into a day of living with a chronic illness that doesn't go away. It's obviously more stressful for someone who's not used to it, but for me, it's second nature, thinking, I've gone out in public somewhere, I'm at the mall, I've touched doorknobs and whatnot. I always have hand sanitizer on me. And when I get home, I always wash my hands. And so I'm kind of glad it's second nature. It gives me a sense of reassurance that, we're doing everything we can to stay healthy.
I guess that's the thing with the challenges and the journey you've been through over the last many years. Just staying home and being safe that way has got to be, and I don't mean to make this as simple, but almost probably one of the easier things you've had to deal with over the last 5, 6, 7, many more years.
Yeah, I like to say that I'm a pro of hanging out on my couch. The first, I think it was around 3 or 4 weeks into it, I kind of hit a low point of thinking, I have already done this. I have stayed home and waited for lungs twice now, the latter time being for over 2 years. And I was kind of like, why does this have to happen right now? I put my time in, I waited, I stayed home because I couldn't go out. I couldn't get sick. And now I finally have lungs and I'm the healthiest I've ever been. And now I've got to stay home on the couch again. But it's, again, kind of the community feeling, like everyone is doing it. No one is really at work unless you're an essential worker. So I'm not missing out on being at work per se. And just kind of keeping my mentality up of, I'm not sick again. I'm not waiting on lungs again. This is just a crazy situation that no one could have really predicted would happen. And so just kind of reminding myself of that, because it is very easy to slip back into that kind of being sick mentality. But otherwise it is, I'm a pro at keeping myself busy with a few hobbies between Netflix and reading and knitting. I've had 2 friends that have had babies, so they're going to be getting a lot of baby booties and hats and blankets by the end of this. But keeping busy kind of keeps my mind distracted too, and that's the best thing that we can do. When my husband's working from home, so he's working during the day, so I can kind of putter and do what I want, and then we try and hang out as much as we can, for dinner and after dinner. We've been playing a lot of different games and trying to find different things to occupy ourselves.
So, and you kind of hinted at it a bit there, but what advice would you have for people where this is a new thing, this last 5, 6 weeks of being, staying at home, doing the right thing? This is, as you said, it's something you've dealt with in the past. What advice would you have for them to try and stay positive and probably keep the mind occupied and engaged?
I think the best thing is knowing everyone is doing this. So that feeling of I'm missing out on doing things, or I shouldn't be staying home, I shouldn't be doing nothing per se. I think that's the biggest thing to kind of keep in your mind and remember. I think it's easier to accept when everyone is doing it. And then also, take the time to do nothing. There's a lot out there saying, learn a new language or take a class for free from this university or whatever. And if that's your thing, great, go ahead and do it. But also don't feel bad about doing nothing. You're most likely not going to have a long break from, your routine of getting up and going to work every day. And there are people who love going to work and are going to struggle not having that schedule, but also kind of accepting, you're allowed to do nothing. You can sit and binge watch a whole season of a show on Netflix. And if that's how you were productive today, then hey, that's what you did. But just, finding little things to keep yourself busy, try and keep like a bit of a routine, make sure like you get up and get out of bed. I say that, and today's the first day I've gotten up and showered, put on some clothes and makeup and done things, but I'm used to living kind of doing nothing, so I'm not a big focus on being presentable for people. But really for me it's different hobbies and different things to be doing. Connecting with people online, like obviously there's these Zoom meetings, there's FaceTime, there's Google Hangouts, a lot of ways for you to hang out with people without actually being physically hanging out with them. And that kind of keeps the connection going. And I find a lot of people are almost reaching out and connecting more now than they would on a regular basis, because there is nothing else for us to be doing. And you kind of get that sense of, family feeling of, hey, I can reach out, we can hang out. And both be doing nothing together. So just anything that really, piques your interest, or like let yourself have those days where you do absolutely nothing. And then, the next day, maybe you get up and you're super productive. I had a couple weeks where my whole house has been spring cleaned, and I wish that I had kind of spaced it out a bit so I have more to do. But yeah, just the combination of, remembering everyone is doing this and it's for good reason. And I mean, I'm sure we all want to be out of the house by summer, enjoy Sarnia and its beaches. And but yeah, like keeping updated as well on information is another thing. I've kind of just stopped reading all of the articles. I've been following just what my clinic is putting out as far as restrictions or what you should and shouldn't be doing, or how the pandemic is going. But I found when I was reading everything that was coming out, it just consumes you very easily, and you don't want to be too focused on pandemic and what is happening when there's nothing you can be doing other than staying home. So trying to just keep upbeat and positive and distract yourself, I guess.
Finally, speaking of upbeat and positive, you and your husband, of course, waited till you recovered from the second transplant to get married, and you were able to get a honeymoon in just before this all broke out. And I've got to think that was had to be quite the highlight.
Yeah, it was definitely perfect timing. Like you said, we got back beginning of March before everything kind of was crazy. And, for once, we kind of said, hey, luck was on our side. We finally got the wedding, we got the honeymoon. I have a lot of friends and family who have had to reschedule weddings and stuff like that right now. So it is kind of a bittersweet feeling, but a lot of people have kind of said, well, at least your wedding happened because you guys have been waiting a long time for it. And it was special. We got married on our 9th anniversary. So, we're pretty lucky that we were able to still have our wedding and get away on a honeymoon vacation. We haven't been away on vacation in years. So, things are looking up.
Well, Tara, we wanted to check in with you, and one of the more positive people that I've certainly crossed paths with in my time in Sarnia, and great to see you're doing well and staying positive, and we'll catch up to you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Terry.
There's Tara Lisabeth joining us here on Sarnia Lambton Daily. More to come right after this. Recapping our top story here on Sarnia Lambton Daily, the number of positive cases of COVID-19 in Sarnia Lambton has jumped by 9 today to 159 total cases. But more than 40% of those 159 are considered recovered from the virus. Lambton Public Health is going to be putting its resources into contacting people who have tested positive, while those who have had results come back negative will find out through online methods provided to them during testing. Well, that's going to do it for our show for this Thursday. Coming up tomorrow, we'll have our weekly visit with Sarnia Lambton MPP Bob Bailey. We are also scheduled to check out what's happening at Blue Water Bridge. That's going to do it for now. I'm Terry Doyle. We'll see you tomorrow.